Alrighty. Well, good evening, everyone. Sorry we had a little sound trouble there, but we want to welcome in everyone who was with us in the last hour for the premiere of the Pendleton 2, They Stood Up, the story of Christopher Naeem Trotter and John Balagoon Cole, who remain in prison, having been persecuted for standing up for the life of Lincoln Love. So thank you, everyone who joined us, and thank you really first and foremost to the Defense Committee to Free the Pendleton 2 for bringing this to our attention here at Breakthrough News. And thank you to our partners at Black Power Media, as well as the Defense Committee for joining us to put on this after show discussion. In just a little bit, we'll be joined by Dr. Jared Ball. We'll also be joined by Two Black and the King Trill, who work with the Defense Committee to Free the Pendleton 2 and worked very heavily on the documentary itself. And I will introduce everyone more properly in just a bit. But we are very, very honored to have messages from Mr. Christopher Naeem Trotter and Mr. John Balagoon Cole to everyone who was able to watch the film. So I ask, if you are watching this or wherever you're watching this, that you share this event. Make sure that everyone knows we are here, we are live. We're going to have an after show discussion here, breaking down everything, including the ongoing fight to free the Pendleton 2. But first, we want to hear from the men themselves.
Hello, outside world. This is Christopher Naeem Trotter, inside the belly of the beast. And I just want to take a moment to talk about the documentary. At this point, I've been locked up for 37 years behind the reformatory incident in 1985. Wasn't no one kicking the incident, and me and my co-defendant received de facto life sentences. That means that unless people take action, we would die inside this prison. That means for us standing up, defending the right of a fellow human being that was being beaten while handcuffed and shackled, we sacrificed our lives to save a life, and we were sentenced to life. I encourage people to watch this documentary because it tells the truth that every day I live knowing that I did the right thing. I encourage people to find out how they can get involved, to sign the petition, to be proactive. I encourage people to support our fundraisers. Go to tough.org, free the Pendleton 2. And also go to fundraiser, free Chris Trotter. And donate whatever you can, And we appreciate people just reaching out and just trying to see how you can get involved.
All of those who have watched the film covering the February the 1st, 1985 reformatory incident and the subsequent trial that occurred as a result of my participation in that rebellion. Appreciate your efforts in trying to get my sentence modified and get me released from this prison. And I can't express, my gratitude, I can't really express, how grateful I am for all the effort and the time that y'all done put forth in trying to get me and my co-defendant released. That being said, because I have become a symbol of condemnation for the state of Indiana, it's going to take more than just a documentary or a film you know, and what occurred on that particular day to get me up out of here. We're going to probably have to protest and really petition the court on numerous occasions to get them to change their mind about letting me go. And so for all of those who's willing to stay the course and participate in my release, thank you.
And again, that was John Balagoon Cole, sentenced to 84 years. And just before him, that was Christopher Naeem Trotter, sentenced to 142 years simply for standing up to defend the lives of other inmates, and they are the Pendleton 2. I just want to note we're about to introduce our panel, but in a little bit here, maybe 15 or so minutes, we also are going to be joined by Minka Bektimba, who, for all of us who were just watching the documentary, was a participant in the 85 uprising, but of course was there in the film, The Pendleton 2, They Stood Up. So as we move into our discussion here, I'm very happy to be joined by Dr. Jared Ball, professor of communication studies at Morgan State University, author of The Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power. Also, I Mix What I Like. Two Black, who's a communications representative for the Defense Committee to Free the Pendleton 2, host of the Black Miss podcast, and also a director and producer of the film we just saw. Then the King Trill community organizer, musician, director of the Pendleton 2, They Stood Up, also a producer, also the narrator, did a lot of work on this film, and hopefully people go take a look at the credits and the YouTube score there as a group effort, as I know you noted, Black, in the chat. But thank you all so much for joining us here. It's a discussion too, so I don't have to ask all the questions, but maybe I'll throw out a few to get started. King, it is a powerful movie, and we talked a little bit about this last week when we showed the trailer. Just a powerful story, and I wonder, just after this, having you've done the movie, you've shown it, you've looked at it so many times after the premiere, what you're really sitting with about these two brothers and the struggle they're in and the struggle to free them.
What the question was? What I'm really sitting with? You said.
Yeah,
What was
in
the
the wake of
question?
this premiere. Yeah, please.
I'm just really going through a lot of emotions, but the most important thing and the thing that I want to keep everybody's eyes focused on is that these men have been suffering for almost 40 years in prison. John Cole Balagoon's been there for over 40 years. They've been attacked, they've been persecuted, they've been traumatized, they've been brutalized, everything under the sun. And they have been given the state of Indiana has been given a pass to continue on this brutality. Even to this present day, they want to punish them for standing up against this cruel system. And I just want to implore people to please work with us, come together so we can go forward and bring these brothers home to the remaining family they have where they belong.
Black, one of the things that I was watching the chat during the film that you mentioned that you said always sort of strikes you is the determination of both of these brothers to continue fighting. And I was hoping you could just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, even in editing it, I think particularly with that solitary section, because that was probably the toughest one, honestly, out of all of them. But part of what we all wanted to emphasize, me, King, everybody, was the organizing and the fact that they kept going. Like, so even while they're in solitary confinement, they're doing a hunger strike. You know, they're trying to. There's some stuff that's not even in the film. They're helping get other people out of prison. They do jailhouse lawyer work. Balagoon was telling me the other day how they used to play chess and they couldn't get out of their cell, so they would shout out the chess number, all right, to people in the other cell, and they would move the chess pieces in their own cell, right? Like, so they always built community because they understood that was the only way they were going to get through it, right? Like they want to isolate you, right? Clearly you see that they want to isolate you, they want to torture you, they want you to lose your mind. And, as Naeem said, he refuses to give them that. And I just think that for all the suffering that is told, and I think we definitely need to talk about that, but they still have some kind of inspiration. They still believe in the bigger cause. They, King can speak to it. They always tell us that this case is bigger than them. They don't want us to just talk about it from the standpoint of only their case, right? So I think that's my main takeaway. I mean, I've watched this stuff. We both watched this stuff a million times, right? So you never get numb to it, but it does help you get to deeper layers once you watched it so many times. Like you're beyond the shock, and you start to really respect them on a level that I don't know if I've had that kind of respect for people. As I've always said, it's one thing to read about the revolutionaries in the past or something of that nature, but when you actually speak to them and you're sitting there listening to them, on the phone or wherever, like that just hits you differently. So I think that's something that people, as they're probably processing a lot of the trauma that by listening to that, definitely need to also respect the fact that these men still have will. They still believe in the bigger cause that they fought for, and they're at peace with that, even if they're not at peace with being in prison.
And Jared, I mean, I'm certainly curious anything you have to say or anything you want to pose. But one thing I've been thinking about in the course of this is I mean, the fact that they were doing all of this prison organizing. Black just brought it up. I mean, they're getting people out of prison. They're doing all these things. They have an organization, the Black Dragons. I mean, all this. I mean, some of it's history, some of it's contemporary, but it's not told, it's not written about, it's not known. I mean, I'm so grateful, to Two Black for even bringing this to me. I'd never heard of it, and I don't know where I'm going with that, Jared, but it was something that it really has been weighing on me is that aspect of it.
Well, first of all, for me, what Black you just said, the shock is setting in. Seeing this for the first time myself, and it is like you said, it's one thing to hear the stories, similar stories, to even talk to other people who've had similar experiences, or to read the histories. But this is very shocking. So for you to have been that close and helping put this together, I commend the both of you. And your whole crew for that work. And big shout out to those brothers for that work and what they did and what they continue to do. I mean, that is incredibly inspirational. One of the things I did think of, and I beg everybody's pardon for my dog in the background, but there were two things that I did think of, though, in terms of some of the histories that I know we all talk about. So even before let me just first of all shout out to Breakthrough, to BPM, to this collaboration, again, to the production of this video, to the support for these kinds of stories that never get told in favor of really nonsensical fantasies that we get. But the two things that I thought of really were again, the thing we talked about a number of occasions when Schwarzenegger signed a death warrant on Tukey Williams, simply because he had expressed affinity for the politics of George Jackson and Assata Shakur and Malcolm X and things like that. And then Rochelle McGee, currently still locked up, who is sitting there in a courtroom one day, and Jonathan Jackson busts in and offers a similar level of solidarity. And what do you do in that moment? And on the flip side, those brothers deciding in that moment, we're going to stand with these others and show solidarity, even as I'm looking at, he's saying 3.5 years to his own release, to other people maybe not having to be in that level of risk. Anyway, I'm rambling myself, but it's an incredibly inspiring story. So thanks to all of you for bringing it to everyone's attention at this level, and anything else that we can do to help spread the word is at a minimum absolutely necessary and to be done. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it really is. And I mean, how the film starts even, and counterposing. And I think, King, you asking the question to yourself, about the George Floyd, like, what would you do? I think a lot of us have asked, that question in the course of so many things and things we've seen, and I think that's the other thing is so much brutality is put in front of us, and it's easy. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to look the other way, but it's hard to stand up and do something when you're at risk. And it just, I don't even know where I'm going with it, but the level of inspiration that I think comes from this story really is, it shows that, it's not like revolutionary activity, radical activity is not really like a superhero type of thing. I mean, it really is coming from this deep feeling of love. I think it was Balagoon who says in the film, like, how could I say I love you and I stand for you, and I wouldn't do anything to save your life? And that to me was profound. I mean, I just thought, wow, like, I mean, Che Guevara said it, right? Like, a true revolutionary is really motivated by great feelings of love. But what does that mean? You know, we read it in the book, and it was powerful there. So I'm not even really directing the question at anybody, but you know, if anyone wants to go off that, I mean, that's just a big reflection I had. King, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, King, take that.
You know, I really, I mean, like you said initially about the George Floyd situation. I was watching the George Floyd trial, and I saw the witnesses take the stand, and the witnesses took the stand, and they were saying that they couldn't sleep, that they felt incredible guilt, that they contemplated suicide, that, you know, their life has been forever changed and forever traumatized because they watched somebody smile in their face while they killed another human being. They are forever changed and forever affected by that. So then when I discovered this story of Balagoon and Naeem, and seeing how they responded in the face, they knew that they could die. The one wrong move, they were gone. They would be murdered in cold blood, and nobody would say anything about it. But they stood on their bravery. They stood on courage. They stood on camaraderie, and they insisted upon saving their life. They was about to be released from prison. They were about to be released and go home, but they could not stand there knowing this constant abuse, knowing this constant violence. They couldn't stand there and let a friend of theirs get murdered. And I think we have to adopt on some level the same philosophy, you know, because we are out here. We know about this brutality. I did 15 years in prison myself. I've been in the hole. I've been brutalized by police officers, by COs. I've been through the whole process myself. So I know these things are the truth. That's why I'm speaking out so vehemently. And I am urging and imploring everyone, we have to come together and bring the relief that these brothers deserve for showing this extraordinary amount of courage and perseverance.
Black, before you jump in, if you don't mind, I wanted to ask if you could talk a little bit about what I thought was a fascinating part of this story was as what we've just heard there, the thin line between offense and defense. That is that whole point about we took a portion of the prison over only to survive. It was the only that offensive move was the only thing we had as a defensive tactic. Similar to what again what just was said about the defense of George Floyd or the lack thereof, and that they did it in prison too is that much more I mean, in terms of the comparison to the Floyd piece, but could you, in addition to whatever you were going to say, could you maybe add a little bit about that thin line about where we often find ourselves between offense and defense?
Yeah, well, I think that's where the Black Dragons point is important, and that honestly got put in kind of late, but we felt like we needed to emphasize that because that gives you some backdrop. And for people who may have not seen the film or didn't catch that part, the Black Dragons was an organization that the prisoners had formed. We can give you a little more backstory on that, but prisoners had formed because they were dealing with, you know, racists, as they found out later, you know, KKK guards, and they needed to, you know, have means of protecting themselves and also mutual aid and taking care of each other. And, you know, there's a love and a brotherhood there, right? So when you think about that existing, the idea of Big R, who's a great storyteller, by the way, to, you know, shout out like, "Yo, they're killing us down here," and everybody shouts, "Yo, they're killing us down here," and then that gets down to, you know, Kevin Murphy, you know, who then shares that with other people, and then that makes word back to Balagoon, and then he goes back and gets Naeem and brings other people on like Mika, who will be on soon, and they go to investigate to say what's going on, like, why are you doing this to Lincoln Love, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there's a level of organization that you have to do that. So so on the outside, we're often not organized in that capacity. So when somebody's getting beat down, we don't have anybody to call like that. You know, we really don't. Like, we're just kind of as an individual in the situation. Like, well, should I do something? I don't know if I could call 5 people who would come to the scene, right? Like, I don't have that, right? But they had that, right? So it's easier to then go confront them, get chased, have to fight your way out, stab people, etc., take hostages, still be able to come up with demands. still be able to protect the guards. And because again, nobody was killed in this case, and this is not to appeal to some generic type of innocence. It's just to say that that's also a level of organization, because they put the guards or the hostages in a cell and had other inmates protect them. Because they also understood that if they didn't, I mean, we make slight reference to Attica, like we saw what happened once that one person died in Attica, even though they died very late in the process. They shot up everybody, including the guards themselves. Like I'm talking about, the state of New York did that, right? So I think the offense is in the fact that they were doing work prior and that they had a bond and a love for each other prior. That I think if we had more of that on the outside, we would see more people throw a brick at Derek Chauvin. We would see more people step in and do that, because people have your back. But I think often the reason why a lot of us don't want to do these things, because we don't know if anybody has our back. We don't know if we do that, is anybody else going to really be there with us, or are we just going to go out, just, we lose our family and there's no support. So that's why, coming back to King, that's why we have to support them. That's why we have to fight to get them out. Because when people take these kind of risks, you have to have their back, because it sends a message to the rest of us that if we want to stand up like that, people will have our back too. And if we don't stand up, then it sends a message that we don't, and it quells rebellion. It quells any kind of disruption from the people at the bottom.
And on that note, I want to note that we do have with us Mr. Minka Bektemba. I think King is going to come back with us in just a little bit, and we're going to bring on Mr. Bektemba here, who is a. Sorry, go ahead.
I think I'm the one who's supposed to go.
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
King's
Yeah, my apologies. Black is going to drop off real quick. We're going to bring on Mr. Bektemba. Black will be back, and we're going to talk, of course, before we close, about what everybody can do. So make sure you don't go anywhere, and please share this stream so that people can follow what we are doing here. But we're going to bring on. Take a little shit here, Mr. Bektemba. Thank you so much for being with us.
How y'all doing? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. Yes, sir. Let me ask you this just to start. I mean, what would it mean for you to see the Pendleton 2 go free after all these years?
I'm just sitting here listening to y'all, and I'm flashing back, and it would be the most, man. The trauma and the violence, the tendency goes on. I mean, I did 16 years in it, but this is nothing compared to what they're going through, and the repercussions for that situation, from the beginning, they put us in the hole from that. I just can't fathom, man, what they're going through. And so, I mean, they're still alive, still strong, it's just, it's their character, man. That's them. That's the persons I knew, back in 1985, 1984. We knew each other for that. We all came together, out of that violence, out of that ugliness, out of that racism that, was attacking us every day. And that formed that Black Dragons. Black Dragons were formed to, protect ourselves, man. I mean, we had gangster disciples, we had vice lords, we had Aryan Brotherhood. We were all, being attacked or separated or having each other, they manipulated where we attack each other. So, that's what we formed the Black Dragons. Now, I remember getting the first manifesto. It came down from the lockup, smuggled down, and, we were putting that together. But that's what that was, man, to protect ourselves, So we knew each other, we associated, and man, that day was like the icing on the cake, so to speak. But cakes are sweet, and this was ugly. But the beating of Lomar, it was coming, when he had got into an incident. I was there that day, and I got him, the guards not to hurt him that day, but we went to lockup, and I went to check on him the next day as his lay advocate. That's when they told me I couldn't visit him, and I could tell that something was going to happen that day, but I had no idea it would be this. And then by the days, midday, it was on, and so. And he was one of the leaders too of of the Dragons, and part of being foreman that over the years, he'd been a leader throughout the prison system, and educating young brothers like myself, and stuff like that. So, but when that day came, man, it was just like, oh, okay, and it was spontaneous, nothing planned here, but we knew we had to do something, they did it, man. They did it. They did it above and beyond what I at the time, I'm not gonna say. Well, I know. I think back now, how could I have did that? I don't know if I could have did that. Even though I was there, I just wasn't in that position. So, hey, man, I think back and man, hey, I appreciate everybody and what they're doing, and what little I can do, just being here, man. They need, they deserve, they must be freed. It's punishment phase is over. This is torture. This is straight torture. Yeah. I can go on and on.
Well, Jared, I don't know if you want to jump in or ask anything.
No, I did want to. I sort of wanted to ask if in case I missed it, or if anyone else might have missed it in the airing of the film. How did could you both, King, maybe start? How did you come to this story? How did this story of all that there could be make it to you? And then how did the connection here get begun, and the process of this film and all the support work? Could you just say a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, I'm the director of Focus Initiatives Ltd. and the Indianapolis chapter, and we're a prison reentry group. We help people, men and women, coming out of those facilities, and we help them get a good start on turning their lives around so they never enter that system again. And I discovered that group because they helped me. I've been out for 3 years now, and I'm doing great. So yeah, that's what we do. And then being with them, we had to communicate with people who are incarcerated, and through that, and through the work that they were already done and the relationships they already built, that's how I come to know about the story. And once I come to know about the story and said how incredible this was, I got my own cameras. I was filming music videos and editing programs myself, So I took it upon myself to grab these cameras and just started recording this footage everywhere I went. Minka was gracious enough to let me come to his home and speak to him right in his office. And, we had to tell this story, and we had to keep it as truthful and authentic as possible. And then I got to be blessed to talk to these men, John Cole and Christopher Trotter. I talked to them directly, and we became friends. And they told me about what was going on with them and the things that they had suffered. But I'm going to say this real quick. What was so amazing to me is, man, these men are so intelligent and eloquent and powerful speakers, and they only speak life, and they have forgiven everyone. I mean, you've heard some of those stories about being in the hole for 20, 30 plus years. You hear about people going through insanity, and never coming out the same. But these men being so determined in spirit and will, they have, not only do they have a sound mind, but they have the most beautiful minds that I've ever met in most human beings, period. So it's just incredible of a story, and I knew it had to be told. And this is the format, the media, to get this type of message out today. So I still want to encourage people to watch this. Please share it with everyone you know, so we can continue to expose the evil that takes place every day in this system in our name.
I'm with you 100%. I mean, this story has to be told, and I hope everyone who's watching knows you can go to the YouTube here at Breakthrough News, also Black Power Media. You'll be able to find the video, share it with everyone, and I hope you do. Mr. Beck-Timbo, one thing I just want to ask you about it in this context, and I guess there's so many things I want to ask you about. I mean, what a story, but. The fact, I mean, it just feels that what you all were living with, day in and day out was unbelievable. I mean, the racism of these guards, everything you described about the thickness of the batons they would use to beat you. I mean, I know for a lot of people, we know and we hear about prisons and how, beast-like they really are. But I think for a lot of people in the U.S., it's still unknown how torturous these institutions really are. And I was hoping you could just say a little something about that.
Oh yeah, this is this still happening today. I'm in touch with people in the DOC. This still happening today. I work in addiction recovery. I work with people with justice involved coming out of the DOC, Department of Corrections. This stuff is still happening. This is the mentality. This is what they do. There's no. It says in Indiana Constitution it's based on reformation, not on vindictiveness. That's not true. It's just simple. It's not true. It is vindictive, and it is a white racist system. White supremacists. That's who runs it. They have blacks in the positions, but they're not running nothing. We know this is happening all around the country. But back then, man, it was even. This is the early '80s. I went in at '79. The early '80s, and it was even worse. That day, I remember the superintendent, after we had taken over the cell house and secured the guards in a safe place, for their safety and ours, because if something happens, we dead. As Pendleton had a reputation, they shoot. They have shot before. I've been in a situation, shot into the dining room or whatever. But anyway, the superintendent was a black man, Norman Owens, but he didn't really run that prison. But he said, "Okay, Mika, I'm gonna turn on the phone for you, and I want you to call me. So we can start talking about how to work this out." Now, okay, you know what? I called the black radio station here in Indianapolis. I said, "Hey, man, they're going to kill us, man." So what? They didn't believe what was going on, But then everybody knew the reputation of Pendleton, even outside the walls. But even to this day, man, that torture's taking. But look at it. Try to uncode. Look at him. And I can look at it. It's still happening. It's still happening, man. They still torture them dudes, man. They didn't kill nobody, man. Like he said, try to I cut it. We saved some lives, possible lives. You know what I mean? But then at the same time, the repercussions, man. I knew it. It was so quiet the next day after it was over with. The cell house was locked down, the prison was locked down. It was so quiet, and I sit up in that cell, and I know everybody else did too. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen? Well, we see it's been happening for the last almost 40 years now. That's what happened. I grace of God or whatever, higher power, whatever it is, I'm sitting here and be able to talk to you. And man, it brings tears to my eyes, I'm just grateful, but then, whatever y'all can do, whatever anybody can do, I'm so grateful for being involved. I stumbled up on this because I have people that keep contact with Cole and Trotter over the years. I might not directly, but I seen an event posted, a petition signing, and I was like, I showed up. I said, "Hey man, I should be here." I was there, So that's how me and King met. That's how we are, we got involved, and then, that's just a little that I can do,
Right on. Here we are trying to play the role of that radio again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's great.
May I add one other thing real quick? Okay, just real quickly. One thing that the documentary truly brings out, and you see it clearly, that the prison commissioner receiving a felony because of how he conducted the prison. You saw documentation of the Sons of Light by other officers and members of staff who corroborated everything they were saying, that these racial organizations exist. You've seen the officer who actually started the prison riot. He went to prison. All this stuff is documented. All this stuff is evidence. All this stuff is in the files and in the records. And yet still, they refuse to give these men justice. They have made their position very plain. That's why it is more than necessary for all of us to align together, because these things won't end. They're going to lock up our family members. They're going to lock up the next generations. And if we do nothing now, this will do nothing but perpetuate and become even worse and worse and worse. It's up to us. We give them license to do this, and I'm at the end of my rope. This has to turn around now. And these brothers got to come home.
Well, we want to talk about what people can do, and I just want to say, Mr. Mikabeck Timber, we really appreciate having you with us. Any final words you wanted to say before we let you go?
Yuhu Sasa. That means freedom now.
Right on. Thank you so much for joining
Okay.
us, sir, and thank you so much for everything you've done. And we
All
want to
right,
bring back,
Mika.
please. We want to bring
Please.
back Two
Yeah.
Black now as well, and as we're transitioning, and we have Black with us here now. And Black, I don't want to bury the lead anymore. For folks who are watching, who are wondering how to get engaged and what they should be or could be doing, what should they do?
Well, at the end there, you saw we just got it done. The Pendleton2.com, and that's Pendleton, and then the number 2.com, not the word two. I'll buy that domain later, but it's Pendleton2.com. And from there, you can get involved in various ways. You can write them. We have their addresses on there if you want to write them, and that is important because the more contact they have with the outside, when stuff like this starts floating around the documentary, and more pressure gets put on them, it's important to put on the state, not the Pendleton too. It's important that they know that there's support, that they're talking to people, that people are writing them because they can't retaliate in the same way. Versus if no one's talking to them, so we got to make sure we maintain contact. So that's just like kind of number one. There's petitions that can be signed. There's you fill out a form, so you don't even have to sign the entire petition. You fill out a Google form. This is all on the website. One goes to the governor for clemency. There's sentence modification that they're both of them are trying to. Well, one of them is seeking sentence modification. The other one is a slightly different. There's some legalese differences there. One goes to the prosecutor of Madison County, Indiana, because that's where Pendleton is in Madison County. And then also, even though you may be watching this film online somewhere, our next phase is doing like community screenings, so we can have more like face to face conversations with folks and do political education around that. So if you are a part of any community, an organization, a church, of any kind of entity, where like reach out to us through the website or through just the Pendleton 2 at Gmail, and we can hook up a screening, so you can do that as well. Then also, the committee itself can always use participants. There's not that many of us who are active in doing things, so a lot of us get stretched thin sometimes. So we're always looking for more people who can come through, and we'll have an onboarding process. So that would be helpful as well. So those are just some of the things people can do. If you have other creative ideas, we're open to those. Like as I always say, I just ask that you reach out to us because we don't want people doing a bunch of stuff in our name that may not be what we actually need, or particularly what the Pendleton 2 actually need. So I would prefer, if you can, and we would prefer to, reach out to us, run some things by us. It's not that we have to give you approval on everything, but we at least like to know some things are happening because sometimes people just run out as an individual and it may or may not actually help the situation. So reach out to us because we're the people who are actually in contact with the Pendleton 2, and they have given us our trust. So we want to respect that.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And you can see the website there, pendleton2.com. Hopefully everyone can see it. Yeah, Ken, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with Two Black. Yeah, they've entrusted us with commissioned us with this serious work, and we're going to try to do it to the best of our ability. But just like he said, we do get stretched thin, and we've been doing this for a little while now, and we have some momentum going. So please, if anyone out there, even if you just have some ideas to share with us, we are open to discuss those with you. And we really ask that people do get involved.
Jared, any final thoughts you want to offer? I mean, I know we're all still processing it, so much there, but please.
No, I just want to congratulate the two brothers here who are joining us and to their broader networks. It's an honor to be able to support this in any way and to help out in however I can. I know however BPM can. Roberto wants to help out clearly as well. So but again, congratulations on the film project. I definitely appreciate that message there to Black and King. Congratulations and thanks to the both of you for this work.
I also just want to note, and you can find this on some of our breakthrough social media, especially our Instagram at BT Newsroom. There's a fantastic comic that is also out that you can use to share and spread
And
the word. Yeah, go ahead, Black.
King drew that. I just want to make
Oh,
sure people know
what?
that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I drew
Wow,
that.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Wow.
Well, it's
Yeah,
beautiful, and
yeah,
it was really powerful.
yeah. And
Yeah, go ahead.
see that, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. We all have different talents. Whatever your talent is, to draw, to write, to record, to communicate, to legal experience, whatever aspect of talent you have, this can be used. We have to work together. And once again, this is an open invitation to everybody to help us, because the state has an evil plan to make these brothers and their story die in prison. And if nobody does anything, that's exactly what's going to happen. So once again, you're employed to join us.
Pendleton2.com. If you're a supporter of Breakthrough News, if you're watching this, if you follow us, share this, share the film, talk to people, do something, get involved. Let's put some bodies behind this. Make a donation if you can as well. Yeah, Black, go ahead.
You just said it. I was gonna say the one thing I forgot to say was donations, because even this film, it was guerrilla filmmaking for those who know what that is, but it still costs some money. The some of those stock pictures and some of the things that we have to do, traveling, all of, like these things cost money. So we're not doing this for profit. That's not our goal at all. But anything that helps sustain us while we do this, would definitely be helpful. So whatever you got. The links are in there. Like they're in the chat. They should be in the show notes on the documentary. Go to the website. The donation thing is there. Definitely give what you have. If you're watching this now or even later, please do that.
I just want to co-sign that quickly if I can, because it's
Yeah.
not just the time and the cost into producing the film. It's the time and the cost that you're not putting into earning money elsewhere. So if we want people to do this kind of guerrilla media work, we need to support them so that they don't have to go and do whatever other things we always have to do to earn. So appreciate you on that as well.
Yeah.
If we all put in a little bit, we can get a lot out of it. So please donate, help, do whatever you can, share the film. The Pendleton 2, They Stood Up, new documentary out now about the Pendleton 2, Christopher Naeem Trotter, John Balagoon Cole, sentenced and persecuted for standing up for the lives of others. And we want to say rest in power as well to Lokmar Lincoln Love, who they stood up for, who recently passed,
Yes,
we
ma'am.
saw in the film.
Yeah.
The King Trill, Two Black, Jared Ball, thank you so much for joining us here and being a part of this and bringing this to my attention and making it possible for me to be here and to share this with our audience. Shout out to Black Power Media. Shout out to the Defense Committee to free the Pendleton 2. And in the immortal words of Dr. Jared Ball, do something. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.